Thank you,
See,
everybody, for being patient and joining back in with us. Thank you so much.
we have a flawed system too, right? Like no system is perfect, and we make it up as we go along sometimes. So the first piece was really just the concept, the mindset behind why we're doing this process. My thoughts on how we say things, what we say, the words we use. All of those become important as we get more comfortable through this process. But let's talk about the action itself of the process. Now, this is definitely the part of the conversation where it's a little bit of a chicken and egg conversation. I sort of need to tell you the whole thing in order for the first part to make sense of the whys and things like that. So bear with us for a little bit while I sort of unpack all of the parts, and then we can definitely have a conversation of, can I change this and can I do this? So in the Greenprint and in the listing presentation, I'll call it that for us, in the listing presentation, we've included this document, which are the preliminary questions. This becomes, I think, the ultimate conversation starter, and I'll call it the bait on the hook if we're going through this process. So this page is also available in our mic drop pages that we have as part of all of our presentation packs, green pages, and etc. And again, on the Greenprint process, there's a link to this page and we can talk about it. The idea here is simple. And Marjorie talks about it in her presentation. We get to lead with this document with a couple of questions that, although are important on what the questions are, what's actually the most important thing is how you frame to your client that these questions are important. So I've sort of got 5 important but sort of generic questions. Marjorie talks about a really big deep dive that she has for her questions, which she uses later. I'm good with whatever questions you have. Here is how I want us to frame that conversation, right? So, I meet Jen at a party and, she knows I'm in real estate and we're making small talk. And she's like, I don't know, Jake, how's the market, right? That question, right? We go through the song and dance and I'm like, well, where are you at in the process? And whatever she says, interested, not interested, I don't know, I'm ready, we get to sort of intro our system and process in this way. Hey, Jen, let me ask you this. In my experience, most clients getting ready to sell their home have 5 questions that become the most important to me on how we create the marketing strategy to help them get the highest price, the shortest time, with the fewest hassles. Can I send you those questions, and if you can answer them or maybe just think about them so we can talk about it later? Would that be okay? So what we do is a couple things. We create the standard by which everyone else becomes measured. So let's assume that maybe they talk to it. Jen leaves me and she's like, I'm not going to talk to Jake. And she walks over and Kristen's over there and Jen's like, Kristen, I'm thinking about selling my home. And Kristen's like, cool, let me come out and do a listing presentation. Jen immediately thinks like, well, Kristen didn't ask me the 5 most important questions. Do those questions matter? They don't. But how we frame that expectation is significantly important. And not that Kristen would ever do that, because I know she wouldn't. She would absolutely do this process. But the idea here is these questions are important because they plant seeds for our client to think about. And we want to use those questions to sort of build the strategy, right? And, tell me about your past experience. If they give us those questions back or answer them, we get the opportunity to do the greatest thing, which is to say, tell me more about that, right? We get to unpack their fears, their needs, right? Knowing that it's always price, time, and hassle. So these questions become an entry point to turn that interest person into a lead or opportunity. I think we should have these with us all of the time. We should have as a printed page to hand to somebody. We should have it as a fillable PDF. We could send them. We should have them in our brain. We can ask them. Get into the conversation. Hey, before we go any further, these are, in my experience, the 5 most important questions that I use to help you get the highest price, the shortest time, and the fewest hassles, right? So we talk about the questions. We talk about that we already understand what their fears are, and that gets us into the conversation.
Hey,
again,
Jake, can
yeah,
I?
yeah,
Sorry,
please, please.
as I'm sitting here listening to that conversation that you're having with, me or
Myself.
Kristen or, yeah, I'm thinking, these preliminary questions to me show that you care about my opinion as the seller, as the customer, and you
Mhm.
want to know more about me. It's really relationship building as well. And
Yeah,
it tells me as the customer that you're interested in what I think and you're not just going to push your agenda onto
yeah,
me.
yeah. And I think that's, that the shift of listing presentation, I tell you, versus strategy session,
Mhm.
it's more conversational. It's more give and take, and I always say like, hey, I've got it 80% figured out, but what I need is your magic. You've lived in the home, you've raised family, you've had dinners, you've had experiences in the neighborhood. I can't do that, but I can plug those things into my system to make that possible. And that's, I think when we convey that to our clients, they feel seen and they feel heard. And let's be honest, that's what all of us want, right? Like that idea of
Mhm.
hearing them say that. So the Greenprint itself, so those questions are part of it. The questions can be used separately at any opportunity to sort of take that interest into a lead. The packet itself, and Jen outlines this fantastically in sort of the one sheet of where all this goes. And this is where I'm going to say the awkward thing. I want us to have these packets pre-built, 2 or 3 of them. They're generic. It doesn't have the homeowner's address. It doesn't have a lot of fancy stuff on it because I want them ready to go at all times. And I want us to include everything, which instantly I know someone's like, Jake, I'm not going to give them that much. They're never going to read it. That's the problem. We've already made assumptions on what our client wants based on what little information we might have or our own needs, our own idea that I can't give a client that many documents, it's going to overwhelm them. Well, maybe they're a facilitator and need all of that information. And here we've taken information from them that's important because we assume that they don't need it. So I give you permission to remove that from your brain. Print the entire packet, all 60 pages. I'll talk about how we frame that. Include the questions, hand it to them. Here's the 5 most important questions. Here's my entire marketing strategy. I usually say it this way. Hey, Jen, I know I don't expect you to read 60 pages. That's crazy. But here's the thing. We haven't even talked about those 5 questions. I don't know what you don't know. It's not in anybody's best interest for me to withhold information for you. I'd rather give you everything, and then later on we can dig into the details. Now, Jen, I put this little sticky on 3 of the most important pages that gets to the heart of how I get you the highest price, the shortest time, and the fewest hassles. If nothing else, just take a look at those, and we'll talk about what pages we tab. I use the phrase both and all the time. I know you're going to think like, Jake, I'll just email it to him. Cool. And also, there's the printed packet. It's both and. I'm going to do an electronic version. I'm going to do the hard copy. I know how tedious this can be, especially given winter weather and driving and somebody's all the way across town. We don't have to make it perfect, but I am wholly going to encourage you to think both and. I'm going to say, Jen, here's the thing. I've got my preliminary marketing strategy. I'm going to be in your area tomorrow. How about I just drop that off at your front door? It's a lot of stuff. But like I said, I don't know what you don't know. So I'd love just you take that for a couple days. Like I said, I tabbed a few pages. I'll follow up with you in a few days and we can talk about what questions you have. I just want you to know everything in the beginning, and then we can talk about the specifics. And then afterwards, I'll email you the page too. I don't know, Jen, I like to read things in a hard copy, but I know sometimes people like to read them electronically. We're answering both questions immediately. The entire packet, it goes. We'll talk about what else goes in that packet as well. I love to drop it off because here's why. When I drop it off, I get to do a little recon on the house. I get to drive the neighborhood. I get to sort of plant some seeds for later when we put together our pricing, which we'll talk about. So here's one of the things that I say often, which is going to ruffle feathers, and I'm okay with it. We tend to put our bio at the front. I get it. We're important. I'm important. I like to talk about myself. I actually don't like to talk about myself a whole lot, but I know why we do it. Here's the magic. Here's the permission we get. If they're having this conversation with you, they already know you and like you and probably trust you. I don't know that it's as important that we talk about what we've done in the past, our bio, versus what we do for them to help them get the highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles. So I would encourage you to think about moving your bio to the end, because here's the thing. After you tell me everything you do to help me get the highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles, your bio is going to sound even better. The bio at the beginning makes it about us, not about them. That's the takeaway there. So in that packet, we're going to tab 3 pages. I've shown a sample of what those are. I'll reiterate this over and over again. I just put those little, like, whether it's the sign here stickers on it. These pages are the heart of what we do, which we'll also use to talk about when we actually go on the listing presentation, marketing strategy session with our clients. Jen's got it outlined. I think we should include a generic listing agreement. Sounds crazy, right? But here's why. I want them to read that information, especially if they're pragmatic, and especially if they're pragmatic and sort of a facilitator. They want to know all the stuff in absence of emotion. The moment we start to talk about money, emotion gets involved. If they can read that information beforehand and just get a sense of it, it's going to help. I also think we should include the purchase agreement. Here's why. Hey, Jen, we're going to get a lot of offers on this home. I want us to talk about how we're going to receive those offers before money is involved and we're comparing numbers and not some of the details. I love to include the disclosures. I love to include just a generic net sheet so they get an idea of how math works out. I also love to include the MLS input sheet, mostly because it's a train wreck of a page and there's just so much on it that they're like, oh, I've got to think about all of these things. I built the packet in a sense that it speaks to both groups of people. It's intentionally overwhelming. And I say this all the time. When I do something, I always frame why I've done that so the client understands. Jen, this is a lot. I don't know what you don't know, but I want you to see the big picture of everything I do in my system to help you get the highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles, right? I repeat it like 90 times. Here's why. Take a look at what you have. Ask me questions about what you have. I want them to see everything and not just focus on one particular need that they have, because here's the answer. If I give them everything, they absolutely know how to refer me. Man, I was only concerned about this one thing, but Jake does this whole big thing. If you're thinking about listing your home, Tony, you should absolutely list with Jake. If I focus on their one problem and solve that one problem, they can only refer me to solve that one problem. Yeah, Jake was really great because XYZ, and he solved that problem and he was great at it. But they don't know how to refer Jake in the bigger picture. So we'll talk about this. I know we're running a little long on time, and I apologize. As fast as I talk, I still run over on time. You guys know this. I do not, with some exceptions, and I'll talk about those later on, I don't include pricing. I don't include any pricing in this packet. The packet is designed for somebody to say, I'm thinking about selling my home, and in my mind, I'm like, cool, let me give you my preliminary marketing assessment of how I do what I do. Let's get back together and talk details later. But because I visit the home, the first thing I do after I drop off that packet is I put together my pricing. I go into MYC. We're going to do an entire session next time about putting together pricing in MYC, not the MLS. I'm okay with it. I just think MYC is infinitely better to build your pricing. And also, I think we should present our pricing electronically on screen in front of the client from our laptop, and I'll teach you how to do all of that. But I'll put together the pricing. Here's some language that I use when we talk about the actives, pendings, and solds, and I'll go into detail on that. Don't include the pricing, but do the pricing so you know going in, hey, any further conversations I have with Jen, her home's probably going to go on the market for $350. So if she's, thinking this number or this number, I can sort of talk about my strategy on how I get there. So some other pieces which are specific to the actual listing presentation being in their home, the mic drop pages, which are crucial to how we actually conduct the listing presentation. And I think, Jen, that's the session after we do pricing. When I show up to the house, I take my mic drop pages because that's what I'm going to use to present. That's what I'm going to stand in front of them and present. I usually have a backup book with me, and we'll talk about why, just simply because they have tossed it in the trash or stuck it under a pile of stuff. And I'm cool with that. But what they do with the book helps me define which path I go down in my presentation. I like to include a couple BHG magazines either with me or in the earlier packet. And man, I tell you this, if you show up with a cookbook at a listing presentation, you're almost psychologically guaranteed to get the listing. Right? Think of how we work. When we're given something for free, we almost feel obligated, like, well, Jake brought us a cookbook for $20. I guess we have to give him our listing, even though we don't even know if he's good. I'm cool with that idea. Like, I am cool with that idea every single time. So I think there's some things we bring to the presentation that we'll talk about that sort of make that a more intentional system. So in that last section, we'll talk about how we conduct the listing presentation, what I call the show flow, the sequence of how we do that, how we go through the process. I call it the tour, the mic, and the goose, which is the money, of course. How that all fits together, because it all leads back to those very 5 questions we started in the beginning, because now we have our opportunity to do the callback or to reframe those questions and speak to that piece. So, in this piece, I really wanted to focus on just the packet itself, the pre-listing package, the preliminary marketing assessment, whatever we call it. Here's my wish for all of us is that in the next few days, you put together 2 or 3 of these packets and think of someone who is in that 7% of the pyramid who, if they understood the benefits of working with you, would be interested in listing their home. And reach out to them and, hey, Crystal, I know we talked a few weeks ago about listing your home. I put together a marketing system. It's everything I do to help you get the highest price, the shortest time, the fewest hassles. There's a couple questions that are really important in that strategy. Can I drop that off and could you take a look at that? Right? I'm telling them that I want them to take a look at that. If it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. If it sticks with them and then every other conversation they have with the real estate agents, they're like, man, they didn't even drop off a page. They just kept calling me and asking me when they could come and sell me my home or sell the home. We've already, I think, had success. So the focus is on the packet, building the packet. I think that I didn't include one more slide, but we'll go back. Jen will make sure we get the location of that packet so you can see, like, here's what goes in the packet. Here's all the pieces. The intention is to get that in as many hands as possible because we are in the peak of listing and lead season right now. Jen, I know I went super long. I didn't look at any questions. I just
There are no questions.
Everybody.
There are no questions. You were very thorough.
I will frame it this way, you guys, and I say this every time, and I absolutely mean it. Let me know what you need to know. Just like we're going to give our clients an overwhelming piece of information, I've got to give you guys an overwhelming amount of information because I don't know what you know, or I don't know what you need to know, and I don't know where you're at. So it's sort of, this presentation is to everybody, but I would love for you to individually reach out to me, and I promise I would, and ask me, like, Jake, for me, what can I do here? And I am more than happy to send you a link to my calendar. You can book time. We can sit down and talk about the specifics of how I help you do that process along the way. So, Jen, any other thoughts? The session itself on Tuesday, what do we have on Tuesday for them?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about. So if you are looking for the Greenprint, there are a couple different places you can go. If you have downloaded the Green Pages app, you can get on there. It is one of the playbooks. The seller's book is there. It is updated. So the
that's right. Thank
stats
you.
in it,
Ryan did just say that.
The stats in it are fresh and correct. There is just a PDF version that is uneditable. There is a link to the to Canva to personalize it if you want to and put your
Yep.
own bio in it. There's also a Spanish language version of it. Um, all the mic drop pages are there too. So the Green Pages, that's a great app to download on your phone, or I have a Mac, so I could download it on my
Yep.
Mac. If you go into Okta, there is a tile that's called Presentation Books, and that actually takes you to the Green Pages now instead of
Perfect.
just Presentation Books, because it's all about, there's a seller section, there's a buyer section. And then on Tuesday, we're really going to go through and dig a little deeper into that marketing strategy, that preliminary listing presentation marketing strategy,
Yep.
where to find all the pieces and how to put it together. So that is what we'll do on Tuesday. And then we're going to dive deeper the next two sessions. Our next Thursday session, we will be talking about MYC Present and
Yep.
how to present your marketing strategy, your pricing strategy using that
It's my,
awesome.
honestly, I say this all the time.
Yeah.
It's my absolute favorite tool for work.
Mhm.
I think it's fantastic, and I love
Yeah.
how it works. So cool. I'm excited about
It
that.
is a great tool and fairly easy to use. So we will be going through that, how to do that, and why that's so impressive when you go to a listing appointment. And then the last section or session of the Greenprint, maybe the last, maybe we'll have a fourth one. But the third one will be about the actual listing presentation. When you go,
Yep.
how to do it, what works,
Yep.
and how to impress.
And we'll have some special guests for that one for sure, and probably for
Mhm.
pricing as well. So, Jen, you're the best. You're the best
No,
co-host
Jake.
ever. I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate everybody that was patient with us and came back on
Thank
after
you.
our mistake in recording time. I
We'll get the,
apologize
you know
about
me,
that again.
I'm
We'll
a
get it
constant
right.
refiner. We'll work out the bugs. We'll figure it out. We appreciate you guys being here and taking an active interest in building your business. I love what I get to do, Jen. I know you love education, training, and all of the things supporting the great people around us. So thank you all. Thank you, Jen. See you guys soon.
Thank you, Jake. Bye, guys. Oh, we got some applause, Jake.
Oh, wait, applause? I love applause.
I can hear it behind me. Thanks, guys. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend.